It happened on a night that no one remembers, and yet it changed the world forever. No trumpets, no grand speeches, no line in the history books to mark the end, just silence and the quiet unraveling of something that had once ruled everything it touched. That night, the Roman Empire, the great and terrible machine that had conquered half the world, nearly vanished. And the strangest part, almost no one noticed. By the 5th century AD, Rome wasn't the roaring lion of Julius Caesar's day. It was a wounded beast, still powerful but tired. Its borders stretched too thin, its armies spread too far. The roads that once carried legions now carried whispers. There was no single enemy at the gate, no one battle that ended it all. Instead, the fall of Rome was like watching a candle melt in slow motion. But on one particular night, everything nearly stopped. Historians rarely agree on which night it truly was. Some point to 410 AD, when the Visigoths sacked Rome for the first time in 800 years. Others say 476, when the last emperor of the West, a boy named Romulus Augustulus, was quietly forced to step down. But this isn't a story about numbers or dates. It's about a feeling, a moment in time when the empire realized too late that it had already disappeared. Picture it, the streets of Rome at dusk. The marble temples are cracked, the fountains dry. Once these streets glowed with the reflection of torchlight and laughter. Now they echo with the sound of boots, foreign boots. The soldiers who guard the city gates don't even speak Latin anymore. Many are Germanic mercenaries hired to defend what they will soon destroy. In the palaces, senators still argue about laws, still debate the grain tax, as if the empire isn't falling apart just outside their marble doors. The emperors, they've become ghosts in gold, boys who sit on thrones they no longer control. And somewhere, far from the city, on a quiet Roman road lined with pine trees and tombs, a small caravan moves through the darkness. Inside one of the wagons sits a man tired, dressed in worn purple robes. He's not a general or a conqueror. He's the last emperor of Rome. His name is Romulus Augustulus, and tonight, his empire will end. Romulus was only about 16, a boy crowned by his father Orestes, who thought putting his son on the throne might keep Rome safe from rebellion. But rebellion came anyway. The barbarian general Odoacer, once a loyal soldier, had had enough. He gathered his men, stormed the city, and told Orestes exactly what he thought of Roman politics. With a sword, within days, the Western Roman Empire was gone. No fireworks, no epic last battle, just a signature, a few scrolls, and a terrified teenager handing over his crown. When dawn came, the banners of Rome still fluttered in the wind. Merchants opened their stalls. Children played in the dust. Life went on. The empire hadn't exploded. It had evaporated. To the people of Rome, it was just another day, another tax, another speech, another rumor of war in the provinces. No one realized they were now citizens of nothing. The Roman eagle, that golden symbol of power, was packed up and sent east to Constantinople, to the new empire that would outlive the old by another 1,000 years. And the Western Empire, the one of gladiators and Caesars, of togas and temples, was gone like a breath in the cold night air. If you could stand there that morning on one of the 7 hills, watching the sunrise over the ruins, you wouldn't see the end of an empire. You'd see something more human. A baker opening his shop, a senator pretending his title still means something, a soldier counting his pay in a language he barely understands. No one told them the empire had fallen. They just stopped believing in it, and that's how Rome really died. Not with an explosion, but with exhaustion. It didn't fall. It faded. By nightfall, the city glowed again, but not with fire or war. It was candlelight. Families gathered in courtyards. Priests whispered old prayers to gods long abandoned. Somewhere, someone mentioned the emperor's name, and someone else laughed. "Emperor," they said. "We haven't had one of those in years." And that was a civilization that had once defined time itself, now reduced to a rumor. They say when something great dies, it doesn't know it's gone, not right away. It lingers like the echo of footsteps in an empty hall. That night, the Roman Empire lingered too, in the hearts of men, in the cracks of its marble ruins, in the languages and laws it left behind. It would live on, not in stone, but in memory. And as the last torch burned low, a new world began to rise from the ashes. The empire didn't fall in one night. It just forgot how to wake up. After the boy emperor's crown was taken away, Rome drifted into a dream, a long, dark sleep that would last for centuries. To the east, Constantinople thrived, a glittering city of gold and mosaics, where emperors still ruled and scholars still wrote. But in the west, the light dimmed, the roads cracked, the libraries burned, and the language of empire, Latin, slowly became 1,000 broken voices. It was as if the world had gone blind and was trying to remember what sight felt like. The throne of the Western Roman Empire was never filled again. Odoacer, the barbarian general who ended it, sent the imperial insignia, the emperor's robe and crown, to the Eastern Emperor in Constantinople, saying, "There is no need for 2 emperors. One is enough." But the message behind those words was deeper. It was a confession. Even the conquerors didn't believe in the empire anymore. The old idea of Rome, law, order, glory had become too heavy for anyone to carry. Imagine a world where the rules suddenly stop working. No central government, no guaranteed trade routes, no army that answers to a single name. The empire's fall left a vacuum, and nature hates a vacuum. So the world filled it with warlords, with kings in wooden halls instead of marble palaces, with faith instead of politics. In the 1,000 small villages across Europe, people whispered about the old days, of baths and roads and bread that always arrived on time. Now they had mud and hunger, and stories about ghosts called Romans. But something strange happened in that darkness. As the empire's walls fell, its churches began to rise. Christianity, once a persecuted faith, became the heartbeat of what was left. Priests replaced generals, monks replaced senators, and instead of gold coins or decrees, the currency of the New World was belief. The Roman Empire had ruled with power, the Church ruled with promises, and in a time of fear, promises were worth more than armies. Far away in stone monasteries, hidden in the green hills of Ireland, Gaul, and Italy, monks bent over candlelight, copying what little remained of the Roman world. Every letter of Cicero, every poem of Virgil, every book of philosophy, copied by hand. One mistake, one drop of wax, one missing page, and 1,000 years of memory could vanish forever. Those monks didn't just save books, they saved voices, because somewhere deep inside, they knew the silence of Rome shouldn't be permanent. Odoacer's victory didn't last long. He was soon overthrown by another barbarian, Theodoric, the great king of the Ostrogoths. He wasn't Roman by birth, but he admired what Rome had been. He kept its laws, rebuilt its aqueducts, and even ruled from Ravenna, a city that still shimmered with mosaics and memories of empire. But even he couldn't bring the past back. Rome wasn't a city anymore. It was an idea, and ideas don't die. They fade, they shift, they find new bodies to live in. The idea of Rome moved, first into the hands of the Byzantines, then the Franks, and later a small man in a tall hat, the Pope. By the time the first millennium approached, the Holy Roman Empire had appeared, a strange echo of the old one. Different faces, same dream. Charlemagne, the Frankish king who ruled in the 8th century, called himself Emperor of the Romans. He wore a crown, spoke a little Latin, and carried the title like a relic. But this empire was not Rome. It was a ghost dressed in Roman clothes, and yet it kept the flame alive. The belief that civilization could rise again, that the old gods of reason and order could be reborn under a new light for most of Europe. Though the night remained long, cities shrank, trade routes died, the population dropped to half of what it had been under Caesar. People forgot how to make concrete, forgot how to build aqueducts, forgot that the world had once been connected by roads. To a peasant in the 6th century, Rome was a fairy tale, a legend told by the fire on winter nights. They say there was once a city of marble where the streets sang with water and the sun never set on its empire. And the children would ask, "Where is it now?" The elders would shake their heads, "Gone. The gods took it." But the truth was simpler and sadder. The gods hadn't taken Rome. We had. Even in the ashes, sparks remained. Roman law shaped medieval kingdoms. Roman roads became pilgrim paths. Roman words became French, Spanish, Italian, the very languages of Europe. The empire hadn't died. It had dissolved into everything that came after. Every castle wall, every monastery bell, every Latin prayer whispered in the dark was Rome speaking in another form. Civilization, it turns out, doesn't vanish. It just changes its shape. If you walked through the ruins of the Colosseum in those years, grass growing through the cracks, wild dogs sleeping where emperors once sat, you might hear the wind whispering between the stones. It would sound like Latin, like memory, like the echo of something that refused to stay dead. And if you listened long enough, you'd understand what every fallen empire eventually learns, that the world doesn't end in explosions. It ends in forgetting. The Dark Ages were only dark to those who looked backward. For those born after Rome, they were simply the present, a world trying to rebuild itself from dust. And deep within that struggle, something new was being forged. The first universities, the rise of new languages, the birth of stories of knights and saints, of kings and dragons that would fill the void Rome left behind. Civilization wasn't lost, it was resting, and one day it would awaken again, but not yet. Not on that night when the last torch of Rome went out. That night was for silence and the quiet heartbeat of a world learning to begin again. Centuries passed, the marble turned to dust, the banners rotted, the world moved on, but Rome refused to disappear. It wasn't just a place anymore. It was everywhere, in the arches of a cathedral, in France, in the ink of a monk's manuscript in Ireland, in the heartbeat of a city that still called itself the Eternal City. The Roman Empire had died 1,000 years ago, but its ghost never left. If you walk through any modern city today, New York, London, Paris, you're walking on Roman bones. Our streets follow Roman logic. Grids, angles, roads, leading to markets and centers of power. Our languages whisper with Roman roots: justice, liberty, empire, all words born in Latin. Even our calendars, our months, our laws, our obsession with time and order, they're all fragments of a civilization that refused to be forgotten. Rome isn't just in history books. It's in how we think, how we build, how we rule. Long after the emperors were gone, men still dreamed of wearing their crowns. The Byzantine emperors called themselves Romans. The German kings called themselves Holy Romans. Even the Tsars of Russia took their title from Caesar. Tsar, they said, meaning Caesar. Everyone wanted to inherit Rome's shadow, because even as a memory, it meant power. The idea of Rome unity, law, civilization became a torch, passed from hand to hand, century after century, and that torch still burns today. After the chaos of the Dark Ages, Europe rebuilt itself slowly, painfully, stone by stone, idea by idea, Roman law was rediscovered, rewritten, and used to shape kingdoms and courts. Roman architecture inspired cathedrals. Roman roads became trade routes again, and Latin, long considered dead, became the language of the educated world, even in America. Thousands of years later, the echo remained. Look at the buildings in Washington, D.C. Columns, domes, marble facades. They look like Rome reborn because, in a way, they are. The founding fathers studied Cicero, admired the Republic, and dreamed of building a new Rome, not ruled by emperors, but by laws. In the Renaissance, Rome rose again, not as an empire, but as an inspiration. Artists like Michelangelo and Raphael painted gods that once ruled the Forum. Poets spoke Latin as if the empire had never ended. Philosophers quoted Aristotle and Cicero as if they were still alive. The ruins of Rome became classrooms. The fallen temples became museums, and the fire that had once burned on altars now burned in minds. Humanity had rediscovered what it lost in the ashes. Not just art, but curiosity. Not just buildings, but balance. The Roman dream of beauty and reason had returned, and this time it was stronger than ever. Today, when we look at ourselves, our governments, our cities, even our ambitions, we're still staring at Rome's reflection. We build empires of our own, digital, economic, cultural, but the pattern is the same. Rise, expansion, overreach, decline. History repeats itself because we're built from the same story. Every civilization believes it's eternal. Every empire thinks it's different. But Rome reminds us nothing lasts forever. Not power, not wealth, not glory. Only the echoes remain. Rome's fall wasn't just a tragedy. It was a lesson. It showed the world that no empire, no matter how great, can survive if it forgets what made it great in the first place. When Rome stopped serving its people and started serving itself, it began to crumble, not from enemies, but from inside. Corruption, greed, division, the same poisons that haunt us even now. Every time a civilization grows too proud, Rome whispers through the ruins, "We were once you." Even the smallest details of our world carry Rome's fingerprints. Our letters, our law, our very sense of time. When you say January, you're calling the name of Janus, the Roman god of beginnings. When you walk beneath an archway, you're using a Roman invention. When you sit in a senate, you're living in their dream. They may have vanished from the earth, but they never left the story, because Rome didn't end, it transformed. That night, the night the Roman Empire nearly vanished, wasn't the end of a civilization. It was a transition, the last breath of the old world, and the first heartbeat of the new. When the torches went out in Rome, they were lit again in Florence, in Paris, in London, and centuries later in America. The empire's body died, but its soul crossed oceans, and today it still stands in every courthouse, every university, every dream of progress. If you could walk through the ruins of the Roman Forum now as the sun sets and the last light turns the marble gold. You'd feel it. The air hums with memory. The stones glow as if they still remember the warmth of empire. Tourists walk where senators once plotted, and children laugh where gladiators once fell. But if you close your eyes, you'll hear something else. The whisper of an empire that refuses to die. We were here, it says. We built, we dreamed, we fell, but our fire still burns in you. The night the Roman Empire nearly vanished wasn't really the night the world ended. It was the night the world began again, with fire, with memory, and with the quiet hope that no light once lit ever truly goes out.